This is the BMW CE04. It's an electric scooter and it is without doubt the most freaky looking production two-wheeler that I have ever ridden. It's kind of hard to describe what this thing looks like, and while BMW doesn't really say this anywhere, I'm quite sure that CE stands for Concept Electric, because it looks like BMW has gone out of their way to make this look like a concept bike. Now, there are many things that will catch your attention with why it looks so freaky and futuristic, like these floating panels out here, the literal long flowing bodywork, these panels along the side stick out, the solid aluminium wheels at the back. All of this comes together to really catch your attention. But there's one other aspect about the C04 that is like nothing else, and that's the sheer length of it. To give you some perspective, this wheelbase is about 7 inches longer than a Hayabusa wheelbase. It's even longer than a Harley Davidson Street Glide. That is ridiculous, and the reason it is this long is because BMW wanted to put a big battery pack in, and they seem to have shoved it in the center between the two wheels and let the C04 be as long as it needs to be. Now, this thing catches attention on the street like nothing else. Wherever we parked it, people were shocked, they thronged all over, and they wanted to ask all sorts of questions. Is it available in India? How much does it cost? What's the range? And of course, how many people will fit on it? But it's not just the looks of the C04 that's shocking, it's also going to be quite a shocker when you sit on it and you twist the throttle open for the first time. That's because this thing is quicker than you would expect. Now, whenever I ride a new electric vehicle, my process is to first start in eco mode, see what that's like. It's usually boring, get it out of the way and never experience it again. But not here. Even in eco mode, the C04 is startlingly quick, and there's no restriction to the top speed. Eco mode will hit the same top speed as dynamic mode, which is electronically limited to 127 kilometers per hour. That number may not seem so impressive to you, but how about this? In eco mode, the C04 in our V-Box tests did 9.07 seconds to 100. That makes it the quickest EV in the country, apart from the ultraviolet F77 in its top ballistic mode. You put the BMW in its top dynamic mode, and that time comes down to 6.7 seconds, which is way faster than the ultraviolet and on par with the new 400cc Triumphs. But this 0 to 100 time feels a lot quicker than the Triumph's time for two reasons. First of all, there's that typical strong EV surge with no interruptions of gear shifts, so it just feels more exciting and more violent. And then there's the way you sit on the C04. Let me demonstrate. This is a 780mm seat height, which is really not bad. But the problem arises when you put your feet up. BMW wants you to keep your feet forward, like a cruiserish sort of riding position. But it's really hard to hold on to this thing when you accelerate. That's because the seat is absolutely flat, so you're getting no support here. You have nothing to hold on with your legs. So invariably, you're just holding with your hands, and your core and thighs gets really engaged when you're trying to hold on to the C04. So I find that to be tiring and painful. The seat itself looks really cool, completely see-through underneath, but that comes with compromises. This is a thin seat, it's quite narrow, starts to feel painful in about 10-15 minutes, but I feel like the bigger problem is again the load on your lower back, because you're not able to hold onto the scooter very well. Also, the floorboard along the side out here is quite narrow, so there's just not a very good way to engage with the scooter. BMW does sell many optional extras for the C04, and one of them is an optional seat which has a little bit of support in the center, and I would recommend that you try that out, although it costs about 40,000 rupees. Anyway, we've gone on a bit of a tangent out there. Let's get back to the performance. The reason this thing is so quick is because it uses a liquid-cooled drivetrain with a 42 horsepower motor that's housed out here, sends power to the rear wheel via belt drive. It sounds quite like an Ather scooter in that it is not silent. There is some electric whine, there is some involvement, but it's an otherwise very smooth and peaceful riding experience. There are 4 modes in total. There's eco mode, rain mode, road mode, and dynamic mode. And the other pretty shocking thing about the way the scooter rides is how strong the regen braking is. The moment you shut the throttle, this thing starts to aggressively slow down. The regen is very aggressive in both eco and dynamic mode, to the point that you can see the brake lights turn on to warn other road users. Road and rain mode have lower levels where you can coast a little bit more when you close the throttle, but the regen there is also quite noticeable. It almost feels like you're applying 30 to 40% brake pressure just by closing the throttle. And at first, this is alien and strange feeling and you won't like it. But the more you do it and the more you ride the scooter this way, you'll eventually stop using the brakes altogether. I really used the brakes only in two situations. The first was to see what they were like, and the second is in case you're in an emergency. But beyond that, you just ride on off. The Regen takes care of everything. As for the brakes themselves, there's a single disc at the front, a single disc at the back. It's all a single-sided swing arm, which is why you get to see that lovely solid wheel on the other side. The brakes are by Jejuan. They work well, especially when combined with the regenerative braking, and it's a good thing because this is not a light scooter. It's 231 kilos. But the good thing again is that the seat height is low and you have a little button here that you can keep pressed, get a bit of a reverse function. That's helpful. You will feel the weight at low parking speeds. But once you pick up some speed, the C04 handles itself quite well. In fact, I would say this feels more like a motorcycle than a scooter, and it's definitely not agile, not quick turning, but it has this solid, sure-footed feel to it. And you can throw it into a corner and just know that the scooter is going to hold its line, stay there and get you out of it. I suppose this behavior is due to this unusual combination of a very long wheelbase, a sort of low vehicle, and relatively small wheels. These are 15-inch wheels at both ends, but they're wrapped in fat tires. It's a 120 section tire at the front and a 160 at the rear. The tires themselves are Maxxis tires, very similar to what we got in the KTM 790 Duke, not the exact same model, but they work really well. Whether it's on Mumbai's slippery roads or in the rain, this bike has a sure-footed feel and it has traction control and dual-channel ABS keeping you safe, which again is a good thing given how fast it is and how heavy it is. Another thing that I was pleasantly surprised by is, despite the fact that this looks long and dangerously low, there's actually a decent amount of ground clearance and going over speed breakers wasn't really an issue. I have been careful, I haven't slammed it over speed breakers, but it's gotten over everything I've thrown it at so far. It's never scraped once just yet. That's also probably thanks to the suspension setup. It's a monoshock at the rear on this side, telescopic fork at the front. It's a pretty nice suspension setup in that it's not firm, not soft. It does a decent job of handling our roads. And if this had a more comfortable seating position, it would have actually been quite a comfortable scooter. While comfort isn't a strong point here, this is still a very luxurious feeling scooter, exactly what you'd expect when you spend a lot of money on a product that's got BMW Motorrad written on it. For one, you've got this enormous 10.25-inch TFT screen, and that really gives you a very premium feeling, especially from the rider's point of view. Then you've got the same lovely switchgear that you get in the big BMWs, the GSs, bikes like that. Great looking lighting up front, and you have keyless start. So you can start the scooter from here, and when you do that, you can access the storage point out here. That is supposed to be 30 liters of storage space. Right now, it's filled with the charger, which unfortunately just sort of rattles around in there. If you buy the scooter, it'd be better to put that charger in a bag. But as for storage space, that's pretty good. And another small luxury is that you have a little strut out here. So the motion of this is smooth. It doesn't just flop over. Again, it's a small, nice touch. There's also more storage up front. Hit that button and you have a sort of glove compartment out here. You can put your phone in there. There's even a little Type-C charging outlet there. You've got another 12-volt power socket out here. And on this end, you have the socket to charge the scooter. Now, the interesting thing with the C02 is that it uses a Type 2 charger, which is the same thing that you can charge your car with. So BMW envisions that you have one of the electric cars or an electric Mini, and you can also charge your C02 at home using the same charger. The other nice aspect of that is that this supports 2.3 kilowatt charging speeds, which means that the charging time is actually really not bad. That is an 8.9 kilowatt hour battery pack, 8.5 kilowatt hour usable, and it charges up in about 4 hours. So if you can find the right charging point, you can charge this thing quite quick. Let's talk about range now. That is a pretty large battery pack, but BMW only claims a range of 130 kilometers, which is kind of low when you think about the fact that Indian scooters like Aethers and Olas have batteries that are about half the size and give you a realistic range of about 100 kilometers. Interestingly, when we tested this thing for range, we put it in eco mode, we kept the speeds below 60 kilometers an hour, and we got to 160 kilometers with 9% charge remaining. So if you really push it, if you're careful with it, you can see 160, 170 kilometer range. But even if you ride it realistically, enjoy some dynamic mode, ride it briskly, you'll still hit that 130 kilometer range. And when you think about it, that's not so bad because yes, this is a battery that's double the size of one of our Indian EVs, but it also has more than double the performance and it weighs about double. So all in all, it's reasonable and it's perfectly usable for life in the city. So how much is all of this going to cost you? Well, unfortunately, it's not very cheap. Unlike the smaller C02 that we reviewed last month, which itself is quite expensive, the C04 is not made in India. It comes in as a CBU import and the price reflects that. Yes, you will get benefits when you register it for road use. You won't have to pay road tax. The on-road price will not be too much higher, but it's still a lot of money. I am a little conflicted about this thing because on the one hand, it's a freaky looking scooter, and if you want to attract attention, if you want a conversation starter, this will really hit the spot. There's also the fact that the performance is genuinely enjoyable, and you have to commend BMW's commitment towards making this look like a concept scooter. It really looks like nothing else. But that's a bit of a double-edged sword because with this single-minded commitment towards making the C04 look like this mad futuristic concept vehicle, BMW has made some pretty significant compromises towards the comfort, and you will especially feel those compromises if you live in a city like Mumbai that has bouncy, far from perfect roads. And with that in mind, I'd love to see BMW take the second generation of the C04, and it has been out on sale internationally for a few years now, and make it a little more comfortable while doing the best they can to keep these freaky looks. If they manage to do that, I think it will seriously elevate the C04's appeal.